Good morning, good morning, good morning, Ava. Good morning, Riza. Hello, Facebook. So it is Tuesday morning. AA. I didn't do an AA this weekend because I was live on Friday. So I celebrated my 10th year of sobriety on Friday. So yeah, it was an exciting day for me because I hit double digits. So great. Anyway, just waiting for some people to come in. I hope y'all are doing well and you can hear me and see me fine. I hope. Thank you, Ava. You congratulated me so much. It means a lot. It does, really. If you're not familiar with Ava Potterfield and Friends, please check out her channel on YouTube. She is an amazing person, a wonderful friend. Been my friend since I started my channel, and yeah. All right, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Sandra, and I'm an alcoholic. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And please do not be judging anybody in the comments. Don't go to their page and harass them. They might be here for support or to support my channel. They might have a family member or a loved one that needs help. So my meetings are not just for one person, and not everybody here is an alcoholic or recovering. So just keep that in mind. So let's get on with the steps. Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory, and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him. praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I always put in the description what book we're reading and the page and the story. So right now we're in the big book, and it is Jim's story on page 232. This physician, one of the earliest members of AA's first Black group, tells of how freedom came as he worked among his people. I was born in a little town in Virginia in an average religious home. My father, a Negro, I don't like saying that word, was a country physician. I remember in my early youth, my mother dressed me just as she did my two sisters, and I wore curls until I was 6 years of age. At that time, I started school, and that's how I got rid of the curls. I found that even then I had fears and inhibitions. We lived just a few doors from the First Baptist Church, and when they had funerals, I remember very often asking my mother whether the person was good or bad and whether they were going to heaven or hell. I was about 6 then. My mother had been recently converted and actually had become a religious fanatic. That was her main neurotic manifestation. She was very possessive with us children. Mother drilled into me a very puritanical point of view as to sex relations, as well as to motherhood and womanhood. I'm sure my ideas as to what life should be like were quite different from that of the average person with whom I associated. Later on in life, that took its toll. I realize that now. But this time, an incident took place in grade school that I have never forgotten because it made me realize that I was actually a physical coward. During recess, we were playing basketball and I had accidentally tripped a fellow just a little larger than I was. He took the basketball and smashed me in the face with it. That was enough provocation to fight, but I didn't fight, and I realized after recess why I didn't. It was fear that hurt and disturbed me a great deal. Mother was of the old school and figured that anyone I associated with should be of the proper type. Of course, in my day, times had changed. She just hadn't changed with the times. I don't know whether it was right or wrong, but at least I know that people weren't thinking the same. We weren't even permitted to play cards in our home, but Father would give us just a little toddy with whiskey and sugar and warm water now and then. We had no whiskey in the house other than my father's private stock. I never saw him drunk in my life. although he'd take a shot in the morning and usually one in the evening, and so did I. But for the most part, he kept his whiskey in his office. The only time that I ever saw my mother take anything alcoholic was around Christmas time, when she would drink some eggnog and light wine. In my first year of high school, mother suggested that I not join the or not join the cadet unit. She got a medical certificate so that I should not have to join it. I don't know whether she was a pacifist or whether she just thought that in the event of another war it would have some bearing on my joining up. About then I realized that my point of view on the opposite sex wasn't entirely like that of most of the boys I knew. For that reason, I believe I married at much younger age than I would have, had it not been for my home training. My wife and I have been married for some 30 years now. Vi was the first girl that I ever took out. I had quite a heartache about her then because she wasn't the type of girl that my mother wanted me to marry. In the first place, she had been married before. I was her second husband. My mother resented it so much that the first Christmas after our marriage, she didn't even invite us to dinner. After our first child came, my parents both became allies. Then, in later days, after I became an alcoholic, they both turned against me. My father had come out of the South and had suffered a great deal down there. He wanted to give me the very best, and he thought that nothing but being a doctor would suffice. On the other hand, I believe that I've always been medically inclined, though I have never been able to see medicine quite as the average person sees it. I do surgery because that's something that you can see. It's more tangible. But I can remember in postgraduate days and during internship that very often I'd go to a patient's bed and start a process of elimination, and then very often I'd wind up guessing. That wasn't the way it was with my father. I think with him it possibly was a gift, into intuitive diagnosis. Fathers through the years had built up a very good mail order business because of that time. There wasn't too much money in medicine. I don't think I suffered too much as far as the racial situation was concerned, but I was born into it and knew nothing other than that. A man wasn't actually mistreated, though if he was, he could only resent it. He could do nothing about it. On the other hand, I got quite a different picture farther south. Economic conditions had a great deal to do with it, because often heard my father say that his mother would take one of the old-time flour sacks and cut a hole through the bottom and two corners of it, and there you'd have a gown. Of course, when father finally came to Virginia to work his way through school, he resented the Southern cracker, as he often called them, so much that he didn't even go back to his mother's funeral. He said he never wanted to set foot in the deep South again, and he didn't. I went to elementary and high school in Washington, D.C., and then to Howard University. My internship was in Washington. I never had too much trouble in school. I was able to get my work out. All my troubles arose when I was thrown socially among groups of people. As far as school was concerned, I made fair grades throughout. This was around 1935, and it was about this time. Sorry about my dog. Just This was around 1935, and it was about this time that I actually started drinking. During the years 1930 and to 1935, due to the Depression and its aftermath, business went from bad to worse. I then had my own medical practice in Washington, but the practice slackened and the mail order business started to fall off. Dad, due to having spent most of his time in a small Virginia town, didn't have any too much money, and the money he had saved and the property he had acquired were in Washington. He was in his late 50s, and all that he had undertaken fell upon my shoulders at his death in 1928. For the first couple of years, it wasn't too bad because the momentum kept things going. But when things became crucial, everything started going haywire. And it started going haywire with them. At this point, I believe I had only been intoxicated on maybe 3 or 4 occasions, and certainly whiskey was no problem to me. Hello, Crystal. My father had purchased a restaurant which he felt would take up some of my spare time, and that's how I met Vi. Mike, please go down to Aunt Lily. She came in for her dinner. I'd known her 5 or 6 months. To get rid of me one evening, she decided to go to the movies. She and another friend, a very good friend of mine who owned a drugstore across the street from us, came by only about 2 hours later and said that he had seen Vi downtown. I said that she told me she was going to the movies, and I became foolishly disturbed about it. And as things snowballed, I decided to go out and get drunk. That's the first time I was ever really drunk in my life. The fear of the loss of Vi and the feeling that though she had the right to do as she pleased, she should have told me the truth about it, upset me. That was my trouble. I thought that all women should be perfect. I don't think I actually started to drink pathologically until approximately 1935. But about that time, I had lost particularly all my property except the place we were living in. Things had just gone from bad to worse. It meant that I had to give up a lot of the things that I had been accustomed to, and that wasn't the easiest thing in the world for me. I think that was basically the thing that started me drinking in 1935. I started drinking alone then. I'd go into my home with a bottle, and I remember clearly how I would look around to see if Vi was watching. Something should have told me then that things were haywire. I could remember her watching. There came a time when she spoke to me about it, and I would say that I had a bad cold or that I wasn't feeling well. That went on for maybe 2 months. And then she got after me again about drinking. Excuse me. At that time, the repeal whiskeys and sorry, skip the word, were back, and I'd go to the store and buy my whiskey and take it to my office and put it under the desk, first in one place and then in another, and there soon was an accumulation of empty bottles. My brother-in-law was living with us at that time, and I said to Vi, maybe the bottles are brothers. I don't know. I asked him about it. I don't know anything about the bottles. I actually wanted a drink besides feeling that I had to have a drink. From that point on, it's just the average drinker story. I got to the place where I'd look forward to the weekends drinking and pacify myself by saying that the weekends were mine, that it didn't interfere with my family or with my business if I drank on the weekends. But the weekends stretched into Mondays, and the time soon came when I drank every day. My practice at that juncture was just barely getting us a living. A peculiar thing happened in 1940. That year, on a Friday night, a man whom I had known for years came to my office. My father had treated him many years prior to this. This man's wife had been suffering for a couple of months, and when he came in, he owed me a little bill. I filled a prescription for him the following day. Saturday, he came back and said, Jim, I owe you for that prescription last night. I didn't pay you. I thought, I know you didn't pay me because you didn't get a prescription, he said. Yes, you know the prescription that you gave me for my wife. last night. Fear gripped me then because I could remember nothing about it. It was the first blackout I had to recognize as a blackout. The next morning, I carried another prescription to this man's house and exchanged it for the bottle his wife had. Then I said to my wife, something has to be done. I took that bottle of medicine and gave it to a very good friend of mine who was a pharmacist and had it analyzed, and the bottle was perfectly all right. But I knew at that point that I couldn't stop. I knew that I was a danger to myself and to others. This one's a really long story, so I'm going to read the rest of this page and discuss it. I had a long talk with a psychiatrist, but nothing came of that. And I had also, just about that time, talked with a minister for whom I had a great deal of respect. He went into the religious side and told me that I didn't attend church as regularly as I should, and that he felt more or less that this was responsible for my trouble. I rebelled against this because just about the time that I was getting ready to leave high school, a revelation came to me about God, and it made things very complicated for me. The thought came to me that if God, as my mother said, was a vengeful God, he couldn't be a loving God. I wasn't able to comprehend it. I rebelled, and from that time on, I don't think I attended church more than a dozen times. After this incident, in 1940, I sought some other means of livelihood. I had a very good friend who was in the government service, and I went to him about a job. He got me one. I worked for the government about a year, still maintaining my evening office practice. When the government agencies were decentralized, then I went south because they told me that the particular county I was going to in North Carolina was a dry county. I thought that this would be a big help to me. I would meet some new faces and be in a dry county. So about his, welcome back, Riza. Um, what sticks out to me is, um, the thinking that nobody would notice, that nobody could tell what you were doing. Because I had that. I felt that. I felt that I was invincible, that it wasn't affecting me, and nobody knew that I was drinking every day or that I was sneaking off at 6:30 in the morning to get to the store by 7 so I get my first drink. I thought I was being sneaky. I would hide my alcohol throughout the whole home, everywhere. And that I cannot believe I actually thought that nobody noticed. Because I was not very secretive. I thought I was being sneaky, but you know, you when you come to being sober and doing your steps and working your program and doing all that stuff, you realize that they knew the whole time. Seriously, they knew the whole time. And I didn't think that way. I thought I was being super sneaky. And no. I thought I was being sneaky when I would uh, get change and I would take off any time of the day and go get my drink. I also did I'll just drink the beer this time because, the alcohol or the whiskey makes me mean. I don't know why we think that way because it's the same thing. The same thing. It just takes more of the beer to get you drunk. And then the longer you drink, the more and more it takes. And it breaks your body down. But seriously, I really thought that I was being sneaky. And that's what many of us think. That our family doesn't know. That our friends don't realize it. That we don't think that we need help. We don't think that we have a problem. We think we're just fine, and we come up with these reasons why we need to have that drink. Well, when you come to realize that this is your downfall, this is the problem, and you need to fix this problem, you gotta fix it for you, not for anyone else. Because nobody else can come along and tell you, you have to do this, you have to do that. Because us as alcoholics, still drinking alcoholics, we just drowned out the suggestions. And so, but yeah, and when I stopped going to church, I stopped all spiritual things when I was in my drinking. I don't go to church, but I believe that there's a higher power, something bigger than myself that, helps me through my days. And then, let's see. Right here. A peculiar thing happened in 1940. That year, on a Friday night, a man whom I had known for years came to my office. My father had treated him many years prior to this. This man's wife had been suffering for a couple of months, and when he came in, she owed me a little bill. I filled a prescription for him. The following day, Saturday, he came back and said, Jim, I owe you for that prescription last night. You don't remember what you did. In other words, who you called, what you said, what kind of actions you just did the night before, and you get people calling you back the next day or a little longer later, and they're like, you did this and you called me this and you called that. Yeah, I did that. I did that. when I got sober for the first time before I found the program, um, I blacked out and I hit my face on the stove. I don't remember it, but I remember coming to and having a rag on my eye. Um, but yeah, it was bad. I got sober for a year, and so I know that you do things that you don't realize that you did, and the next day you get to hear about everything that you did. And sometimes your family will step away and not have anything to do with you because they don't want to see you hurting yourself. And that's all it is they're not being mean. In the real sense, you're pushing them away by being the alcoholic and having that attitude of excuse me, having that attitude of you have to have that drink and you're not going to be nice to these people. And so you say mean things to them and you don't realize what you did. You know? It's the truth. And it sucks. But when you get sober, sometimes you are able to remember those things and you can make amends with those people in your own way. You don't have to make them with somebody else's out, with somebody else's way, you know? Um, but yeah, it's it is well worth becoming sober. I don't care who says it's not. Being sober is so much better. Yeah, I still have my ups and downs. I have my bad days. I have wonderful days. It's still the same, but you're getting to feel those real feelings and remember those feelings. And so, being the authentic self that you truly are is a blessing for yourself. Waking up sober every day is a blessing. Having my friends and uh my group that I do here and the group that I go to and my sponsors, I am so grateful for them because I wouldn't be sitting here more than likely if it wasn't for me finding the group that helps people stay sober and then finding friends in that fellowship of people that I become friends with my old coworkers who are my best friends now. And I mean, I tell everyone that I am a recovering alcoholic, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I am happy to say that I am a recovering alcoholic, and I will say that until the day I pass away. And as long as I have faith in myself and I work my program and I keep doing these meetings and I remember where I come from, I plan to stay sober. And with that, I know you guys can do it too. And if you're a newcomer, don't be scared. Um, Everybody wants you to be able to become sober and stay sober. And in the groups, they are there to help you and to be your friend and to give advice, things that work for them. It may not work for you, but it might. You never know until you try. Um, just know always that if you're a recovering alcoholic, addict, whatever you are trying to come from, just know you're not alone. You're not the only one. There are quite a few of us, millions and millions of us. So Just know that. I'm going to read the daily reflection and then say the serenity prayer and let you guys be on your day. So today is November 19th. I was slipping fast. We AAs are active folks enjoying the satisfaction of dealing with the realities of life. So it isn't surprising that we often tend to slight serious meditation and prayer as something not really necessary. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 96. I had been slipping away from the program for some time, but it took a death threat from a terminal disease to bring me back, and particularly to the practice of the 11th step of our blessed fellowship. Although I had 15 years of sobriety and was still very active in the program, I knew that the quality of my sobriety had slipped badly. 18 months later, a checkup revealed a malignant tumor and a prognosis of certain death within 6 months. Despair settled in when I enrolled in a rehab program, after which I suffered 2 small strokes, which revealed 2 large brain tumors. As I kept hitting new bottoms, I had to ask myself why this was happening to me. God allowed me to recognize my dishonesty and to become teachable again. Miracles began to happen, but primarily I relearned the whole meaning of the 11th step. My physical condition had improved dramatically, but my illness is minor compared to what I almost lost completely. So, I hope you guys have a great day. I love you guys. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Love you guys. Be safe out there. My laptop doesn't like me. Come on. Trying to get a delay.